Okay, everyone, welcome to the Critical Lowdown. It's been a while since I've been on one of these, so it's good to be back. At EPS Global, we've been involved in open networking for over a dozen years, and we've been a partner of Coherence, selling transceivers for over 25 years. Never seen demand like we're seeing now. And, what's driving that demand is AI, and really specifically Neocloud. And Neoclouds, they're a new class of cloud providers that are purpose-built for AI workloads, different from general purpose hyperscalers like AWS or Azure. And Neoclouds are laser focused on GPU dense high performance computing clusters that again are built specifically for AI workloads. And customers like AI startups and enterprises that need massive GPU capacity and can't get it quickly from the big three are turning to these Neocloud companies. So as we address the Neocloud market, we're bringing on new partners, and one of the partners that we're working with, we're delighted to say, is a company called MaiaEdge. And Tim joins us today from MaiaEdge. He's the AVP for Sales. So Tim, welcome to the Critical Lowdown. And let's start by just, if you could tell us a little bit about your career and what landed you at MaiaEdge.
Yeah, great. Alan, thank you for having me. And thanks for learning a little bit more about MaiaEdge. So for my career, about 20 years ago, I was really grateful to land with a group of people and a team that was set out to change the way voice networking worked. And what I learned then has really had played a profound impact on my career up to this point of joining MaiaEdge, which is the team that you assemble and the team that you work for has a tremendous importance in the success you can have. And if you combine that team with the right mission, sky's the limit. So which is really what brought me to MaiaEdge, is some of those folks that I met 20 years ago at a company called Acme Packet are still involved in this MaiaEdge venture today. So that team is incredible. The founders, Abhilash Menon and Tim Lieto, are people I have tremendous respect for and that I trust. And then you combine that with the mission, which is to kind of change the way private connectivity is created and established in this distributed AI world. It was kind of a perfect match, and I'm all in.
Right. So pulling back a minute and looking at the market, so in 2025, Neocloud revenue cleared $25 billion. Right? But the really exciting thing about it is that Synergy are forecasting that it's going to be $400 billion by 2031. So you guys are in front of these operators every week. And what do you see is actually changing about how they're building infrastructure now compared to what they were doing maybe 12 months ago or 18 months ago?
The pace of change and innovation is out of control. It really is. And the biggest change I've seen is that 12 to 18 months ago, it was single tenant infrastructure, one huge data center for a big hyperscaler as their client. Fast forward to now, they need to scale across the market, pick up enterprise customers, have multi-tenancy, service multiple customers. The power constraints are real, so they have to add multiple locations. So just the sheer distribution of AI infrastructure sites is driving a ton of change for us.
Yeah, and the growth really is explosive, isn't it? We've been talking about it. I mentioned earlier that we've been involved in open networking for a long time. And to me, that was a slow burn. It was a successful market for us. It's still very important. It was a slow burn. There's nothing slow about this explosion, and Neocloud really is taking off very, very quickly. There's a line on the MaiaEdge website that really resonates with me, and I keep coming back to it. And it's that your AI infrastructure runs at the speed of its worst connection. Right? And most of the noise that we hear in the marketplace about AI and about Neocloud, it's about GPUs, it's about power, and it's about cooling. Where does the network sit in that conversation for Neocloud operators today? And where do you think it should sit?
So, in the priorities, it's been GPU allocation, power availability, cooling technology, and then network, right? And I think that's essentially fundamentally flawed as we start to, again, get into this distributed AI era. But if you look at, again, where AI is going, you started with the big data centers, which I mentioned, which are heavily training-based. Big training workload. If network's a little bit of a challenge there, it can kind of overcome. Now you start to move to inference, where network performance starts to really increase in priority and importance. And then you compound that with like the agentic AI, agent-based AI world that's coming, where one agent can then call on 10 different inference pods. And so in that case, if one of those connection points has a bad network connection or doesn't have the right network topology set up, that entire workflow or AI flow is going to be disrupted. And so use cases to think about, right, is say surgery, medical surgery, where that inference-based AI cluster needs to be up close to a hospital for robotic surgery, or self-driving cars or things like that. A little bit different than a research training model.
Okay, right. You mentioned earlier about the team behind MaiaEdge, and they're not a first-time founding team, right? It's the same group that built Acme Packet, sold it to Oracle for $2.1 billion, and then built 128 Technology, which was the first time that we met, and it was sold to Juniper. And I remember when we first engaged with MaiaEdge, less than a year ago, it was really apparent to me this was like New England tech royalty, right? Names like Acme Packet and 128 Tech, these guys have been around. So talk us through what the team has set out to do, probably for the third time, and why is it the right problem for them to solve now?
Yeah, this is what gets me excited, right? Is I mentioned kind of the trust in the team, where I started my career, which is at Acme Packet. And at that business and at 128, we were still solving the same general problem, which is connecting disparate networks, whether it's a voice network, whether it's an application to the public cloud in the SaaS world. But to now, what AI is doing to infrastructure is insane. Like we talked about, the scale is out of control. And so the old data centers aren't going away. Yeah. The traditional servers aren't going away. It's all new AI infrastructure being built, which is creating more places of infrastructure to connect and to interconnect. And so this team that's had success in the past now has this massive interconnection problem that exists, and we feel like we're the right people to solve it.
Right. So if there's a Neocloud operator, watching this video or listening to this podcast, paint the picture of what it actually takes today to connect distributed AI sites and to bring tenants into the infrastructure. What does it look like before MaiaEdge, compared to what it looks like after MaiaEdge?
So if you kind of take a new AI data center being built as an example, you get your GPUs, your cooling, your infrastructure, construction, all of that is up. Now you want to provide connectivity to the world. And so you go and you get carrier connections to a meet me room, and you start to get access to the service providers, and away you go. Fairly simple in site one. Now you have some customers that want to access that site. You have to start to have multi-tenancy. You need a VRF or a VLAN or a VXLAN. You have to start to segment those. So one data center, multiple customers. There's some complexity, but it's manageable in the traditional IP networking world. Now add another site, right? Maybe you need a new site because it's a new AI workload. Maybe it's a new site because you have power constraints. Whatever the reason is, another AI site's being built. Now you're kind of exponentially timesing that complexity by 2. So you have the access to the carrier world, but now these two sites need to connect to each other. Dark fiber, MPLS style networks. That takes time and cost. Now you have more customers come, more multi-tenancy, now more sites, now inference sites. You have this explosion of growth, combination of long kind of traditional based IP networking, which is complex and takes time, plus insane complexity. That's the challenge. So how are they going to both connect their infrastructure, which is kind of, or onboard their customers and connect to that? So that's kind of the challenge that they have today. With the MaiaEdge partnership, you simply deploy a MaiaEdge device called a path border controller from day one, and that will be able to enable private connectivity anywhere. So you get to kind of skip over that complexity of managing all of that interconnection of the traditional way of doing things, and then also provide, which is what I think a lot of these Neoclouds are after right now, is a AWS-like experience, right? A direct connect style experience. So have a nice, simple way to connect their existing infrastructure, and then provide a very seamless way to onboard their customers into their environment.
Okay, right. What's making this so urgent right now? Why is the network between AI sites suddenly the layer that Neoclouds and sovereign operators can't ignore?
There's two things that come to mind. One is just the pure physical needs of these data centers, primarily power, right? Like there's only limited power that's available. So they have to go out and find places that have power availability, which again is creating more AI sites. And then the second is the use cases that we hit on a little bit before, right? These inference-based use cases are unique, and those workloads are closer to the consumers. So as you're chasing more power availability and you're taking advantage of these kind of inference-based AI use cases, that distributed nature of AI infrastructure is occurring, and that's driving this.
Yeah, I think that change to from training to inference is an interesting one. I'm not sure that a lot of people have realized the significance of that. The training data centers are massive data centers. But with inference, we're going to have more and more smaller data centers nearer to where people are.
That's right.
For the inference. So
and inference cares about latency.
Yeah.
It cares about network performance a lot more than training does, right? And so that from a network provider perspective, providing technology that allows higher performance, private connectivity amongst many sites, we feel is important.
I feel the other thing with that as well is that the typical data center used for training, massive hyperscalers, they have armies of engineers to solve all these problems. The inference data center guys, the guys who are building the inference data center don't necessarily have that, so they need help. They need to make this a bit more simple. That's I think that's where MaiaEdge and EPS can come in. So shifting then a little bit to EPS, how did the EPS partnership come together, and why is a value-added distributor like us, the right model for you guys rather than going direct to operators?
Well, back to where we started about trust and people we've obviously known each other for in our past lives, from my past life at a different company. And you had already started working with MaiaEdge even before I joined. But there's this opportunity where it's a true partnership, right? Like we work with EPS on our own manufacturing and our own kind of componentry needs. And then we work with EPS on our go-to-market needs as well. So and we know that EPS provides best of breed vendor agnostic solutions to the world, and you don't necessarily need one massive network vendor to supply a complete stack. You can have the best technology for the best use case, and you guys will put it all together and serve the customers appropriately. So we find a lot of value in that.
That's great. Thanks, Tim. And MaiaEdge, it's one piece of a much bigger validated stack that we're putting together. Right? We have optics and switches, power, cooling, install, all under one relationship. In your experience from a customer's day one perspective, how does that integration help them?
Again, I think it allows them to have the best technology possible for their specific need, right? You don't need to go to the one major market leader and just have every component filled by them. You can go to an EPS and have a MaiaEdge for your WAN connectivity solution, a different switching vendor, particular optics vendor. You can provide that single experience with best of breed technology behind it, with global logistics and support. Seems like a win to me.
Right. So there's an enormous amount of capital landing in this space right now. Sovereign bills across Europe and the Middle East, hyperscaler commitments running into the tens of billions. Over the next 12 to 18 months, where do you see the genuine bottlenecks? Power, optics, networking, or is it something else?
I think it's all of them still. Power remains probably one of the biggest challenges, I would say. Networking as well. But what I like about any particular challenge in a frothy market is that it's driving a tremendous amount of innovation. So we've seen, we're working with clients on submerging data center racks in immersion cooling technologies, data centers that are floating on the ocean using tidal power, carbon capture technology. So just the amount of innovation and change that's occurring because of maybe bureaucracy setbacks or powers. And so everybody's innovating and running fast at this particular market. And I think that's what makes it interesting and fun, and one that we want to win in. So again, if we go back to the Neocloud operator is looking at this or listening to it, and they've realized exactly that this is the layer that they're missing and is a requirement, what's the right first step and where should they go? Like anything, a simple conversation to just understand perhaps a little bit what we do, but more importantly, understand the challenges that they might be facing and what projects they're working on, where we could potentially help. You can certainly work through the EPS team. You could work through us directly. It's all kind of leads to the same spot and same partnership. But yeah, just understanding what moving from a single tenant training style Neocloud operation to inference-led one with multiple sites, with multiple on-ramp types of challenges and connectivity needs, that's where I think our conversations will be the most beneficial.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that's it for the questions, Tim. I mean, this has been great. We've learned a lot about MaiaEdge, and it's a very exciting new partnership for us. It's a very exciting startup, and I think it'd be really interesting for us to get together maybe in that 12 months or 18 months down the road to see where this has gone. I'm so excited about the possibilities, and it'd be great to see how that ends up. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.